Good morning and welcome to the historic 350th edition of the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. It is Friday, June the 3rd, 2022. This morning we talk history in the National Basketball Association with a record number of Black head coaches being hired and thriving. Also, history in Arkansas as African Americans are changing the game, even in opera, where an all Black opera has taken the state by storm. We discussed that and more with James Wright of the Washington Informer. Good morning, James.
Good morning. Happy 350th anniversary.
Man, I feel old, James. 350. James, we begin this morning with California screen printer. A California screen printer is suing the U.S. Postal Service for confiscating shipments of Black Lives Matter masks intended to protect demonstrators from COVID-19 during protests that followed George Floyd's murder. A California company said that the Postal Service seized those shipments and they want restitution for it. The cloth masks had slogans like "Stop Killing Black People" and "Defund the Police." They were purchased by the Movement for Black Lives and were meant to be shipped to D.C., St. Louis, New York, and Minneapolis, where George Floyd was killed by police officers. But 4 boxes containing about 500 masks each were marked as "quote unquote" seized by law enforcement, and their shipment was delayed more than 24 hours. James, the lawsuit, which was filed this week, accuses the U.S. Postal Service and U.S. Postal Inspection Service officials of violating constitutional rights under the Fourth Amendment by improperly seizing the boxes without probable cause, a warrant, or even reasonable suspicion. The post office has had many issues over the last few years, but seizing this, it had to have been a political move. Many are saying, James, your thoughts?
I believe it was a political move. You have the Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, who was picked by Donald Trump to run that very important agency. And all he did basically was politicize it. By the way, the U.S. Postal Service is the only federal agency mentioned in the U.S. Constitution. And so that just shows how important it is to this country as well as to this country's history. When I looked at this, I realized, oh my gosh, is there anything that's not sacred anymore? We've had problems with our postal service, not only with that situation, but all over the country. I'm in Washington, D.C., where sections of our city have had problems with people getting their mail on time. They blame it on staff shortages and things like that. But the reality is that particular agency is mismanaged and dysfunctional. And as it was alluded to, violations of constitutional rights, the Fourth Amendment and the First Amendment in terms of free speech may have been violated. They have a right to bring this lawsuit. But I also believe that Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, head of the Congressional Black Caucus, must insist upon a congressional investigation of this. And Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, who chairs the Committee on Government Reform and Oversight, she should also look into this because this is obviously discriminatory.
Yeah, the lawsuit raises the possibility that officials violated the First Amendment by seizing the mask because of their political messaging. And if everyone hollers about the free speech, and we know that the former administration that was in really attacked free speech, freedom of the press. So this, you would think that, like you said, the Congresswoman, the head of the CBC, and others, we can't put it just on Congresswoman Beatty, but others will demand a congressional investigation. And hopefully, again, that the company sees some sort of restitution for this, because you just can't, as you've articulated, James, you just can't do this. There was no probable cause according to the lawsuit. There was absolutely no search warrant. there was no reason given other than the fact that they knew that there was some material about Black lives inside the boxes.
Yes, and the material was political but not offensive. I could give them a little sway if this was something having to do with maybe pornography or child pornography or that
Oh,
along those
absolutely.
levels, but there was nothing like that. They were just mass making political statements about Black people being killed cold by law enforcement officers unarmed. And so that is what this should be. I'm glad they're pursuing this lawsuit. I hope the best comes out of this. And I hope something else legislatively maybe comes out of this. I'm not crazy about always creating a law every time there's a situation, but something needs to be done to get that post office straight and to make sure that every American's mail that is legitimate is mailed on time and without government interference.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll continue to keep up to date on that. And speaking of Washington, James, is it still raining there?
No, it's very nice. The sun is shining, the air is clear. Rain is not always bad. It's just inconvenient, but
It was
it's not
very
always bad.
inconvenient.
Yeah,
Yesterday,
yeah,
I was at the White House and I got drenched.
yeah.
In fact, I found myself cowering under a awning across at the Byrd Building with a Secret Service agent, which is scary in itself. Me and a Secret Service agent, James, they put a Secret Service agent on me. What's up with that?
They're
We
watching
were
you.
both they were watching me. We were both drenched. NBA, James, and they're watching. In the last 12 months, 8 NBA coaching jobs have been filled by Black candidates. And for the first time, half the league's franchises, 15 of the 30, have Black head coaches. It means a lot, said Golden State Warriors assistant coach Mike Brown, one of the 8 recent Black hires. He's taken over the Sacramento Kings. When this series ends, when the NBA Finals ends, he will be the head coach of the Sacramento Kings. He says, when my son and my oldest son's about to have his first son, when they turn on the TV and they see people that look like them leading an NBA team on the sidelines, it can be inspiring. He says, for me, carrying the torch and then passing it to the next generation is something that I think about often, not just for my family, but for others out there. You have Detroit's Dwayne Casey, Phoenix's Monty Williams, Cleveland's JB Bickerstaff, Philadelphia's Doc Rivers, the Los Angeles Clippers have Tyronn Lue, Houston has Stephen Silas, and it goes on. Atlanta with Nate McMillan. These Black head coaches, James, it's really a revelation because we often talk about the opposites, particularly when it comes to the National Football League and Major League Baseball. You're hard pressed at all times to find a Black person in charge.
Well, let me just say this one fills me with a great deal of pride. And the reason is because these gentlemen got these jobs not only because they didn't get their jobs because of their skin color. They got their jobs because they were qualified to do it. I had an acquaintance with Darvin Ham who is now the new coach for the Lakers. When he played for the Wizards, he played for the Wizards for about two years. And it's good to see that a young man like that can go into the league and can work his way up through the system in order to become a coach. And you know this as well as I do, Stacey. A lot of times those players, they play and then they just fall off the radar or go off somewhere else. But I like seeing that. Also, Tyronn Lue, same situation. When I covered the Wizards, he worked his way through the system in order to become a coach. And of course, here in Washington, you have Wes Unseld Jr. I knew his father. And so it's good to see even a legacy is being set up in terms of that. That's just wonderful in terms of the NBA, because as you know, the NBA is 74.7% Black players.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned the NFL. The NFL is 57.7% Black. And the Major League Baseball was pitiful. It's 7% Black. So what we have to do is we have to encourage these young men and hopefully young women with the WNBA to become coaches, to get into the front office where they can make a difference. They can reach out to the community and reach out to the young people of color in the community. And also, but I like what Mike Brown said about his son, seeing him, his grandfather doing that. What I would really like for his grandson to see, his young grandson, soon to be grandson to see, is one of his family members become an owner. As you
How
know,
about that?
yes, because as you know, the only black owner in the NBA is Michael Jordan. He is the majority owner of the Charlotte Hornets. And hopefully, if things work out in the NFL, Robert F. Smith or Byron Allen may be able to purchase the Denver Broncos. We hope that definitely comes through.
Well, and also with the hot water that your guy there in Washington with the Commanders, Snyder, is in, maybe you can get black ownership there too, because he's under investigation by the by Congress and others as well. So we'll see. And also in Major League Baseball, you have the former Oakland Athletics pitcher Dave Stewart seeking to buy a team for the Nashville, Tennessee area, and Nashville is ripe for a baseball team. I know our publisher out there at the Tennessee Tribune, Rosetta Perry, has been in those conversations, James, actually about a black ownership and a team coming to Nashville, and perhaps it will be headed by Dave Stewart, a very successful black pitcher. You remember too, it's so interesting if you go back, and I know you're the historian here, but when you go back to even the 1980s, you had Jimmy the Greek Snyder and also the former general manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers, Al Campanis, make remarks that essentially said blacks were not intelligent enough to be head coaches. Blacks were not intelligent enough to be third base coaches in baseball, and really you didn't have black quarterbacks. You really had successful black pitchers because they wouldn't allow that. But Bob Gibson changed that game in 1968, of course, in 1967. But when you think about it, James, again, we talked yesterday about black teachers, having black teachers, or earlier this week about having black teachers and the effect that it has not only on black students, but on students in general, no matter white, Asian, or whatever, the huge impact of black teachers. It's the same thing with black head coaches in a sport like basketball, like you said, the overwhelming majority black, football, majority black, baseball, trying to attract more black athletes, more black players, and more black talent.
Yes.
So it only stands to reason that there would be more black coaches. And the NBA, congratulations to the National Basketball Association for actually doing it, walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
That's right. That's right. And, the NFL has a lot of work to do. You talked about the Washington Commanders, and we'll see what happens with that situation with Dan Snyder. Dan Snyder should have been gone a long time ago, but the president of the Washington Commanders is Jason Wright. He is this is to me, this is not a victory, but I'm happy for Jason, but he is the first black team president in the NFL. And he got that job 2 years ago. I mean, that's a sad statistic to me.
Very sad.
So the NFL has a lot of work to do. I really hope that maybe Robert Smith and Byron Allen can put their money together, maybe even with Oprah, and buy the Washington Commanders. That would really be something, and it would really boost up the African-American numbers, particularly here in the Washington area, but just anywhere, particularly with the NFL.
Yeah. Well, James, we before the show, you and I were talking music. Well, we're going to talk some black opera. Every performance this season by the Opera and the Rock Company in Little Rock, Arkansas, will feature either a black composer, a black cast, a black featured cast, or all of the above. Reports say the Opera Company will be the only one in America dedicating its entire season to build the black experience. According to Fred Owens, the president and chief executive officer, Fred, he says that they decided to dedicate a season to Black artists because all of our senior management team are technically racial outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
James, a Black opera. This, and again, it speaks a lot to the well-roundedness, and perhaps, if Dr. Chambers was here, I know that he would go here with it, but perhaps it does show this, that you can look at what white supremacists have been trying to do, certainly of late, but for a long time. But they can't take our talent, they can't take our soul, they can't take our drive away from us. Black opera, again, changing the game, James.
Well, when I saw that, I kind of chuckled because when I was a kid, opera was considered to be boring and just long singing with long songs and things like that. And we could, those of us who didn't know anything about it, were ignorant about its value, its beauty, its richness, and its history. And let me just say this in reference to Little Rock, Arkansas. This is taking place in Little Rock, Arkansas, not in New Orleans, not in Atlanta, not in Houston or Dallas. This is taking place in Little Rock. So sometimes progressive moves in some of the funniest places can make a real difference. Shout out to Denise Graves. They mentioned Denise Graves. She grew up in Ward 8 in Washington, D.C., and she went to the Duke Ellington School of the Arts, a 1981 graduate. Go DC, go DC. And so it's just a sign that we, like you just said so perfectly, we have the talent to compete in that medium. And I'm so glad that they're getting the chance to showcase their talents, particularly in a place like Little Rock, where there's just,
of all places, right?
Of all places. And it just shows that our talent just permeates whenever we are allowed in order to do what we do. I may even, I don't know if I'm a fan of opera or not, because I can't go to the opera here in DC because it's kind of highbrow. But I may sneak down there to see what it's about. One more thing, Stacey, about Little Rock. It is my hope that they reach out more to Philander Smith College. Philander Smith is a HBCU in Little Rock, and I hope they have a program with them in terms of bringing them into what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Ella Marchment, who is the Opera in the Rock's artistic director, she says in the company's season brochure, she says, I myself am of mixed race Asian, South American heritage, and my family is more predisposed to listen to reggae music than opera. But now all that is changing with the Black opera, James. This is it's quite a statement from this person. It's really quite a statement. Predisposed to listening to reggae music than opera, but now she and her family is immersed in opera. A real testament, right? I mean, there's so much talent there.
Yes. You. I'm not gonna dovetail from the subject, but I'm gonna pair opera and baseball, and let me explain how I'm gonna do that. A lot of times we have talented Black athletes who may not have. I don't want to say what it takes, but they just may not have the interest, let's say in basketball or football, but they could do very well athletically in baseball, but there are no entrance ways to that. Same thing with opera. You may have a very talented singer who just may not have it in terms of rap music or hip hop. Hip hop is great, and others, but they could possibly become a very well versed in terms of opera. And I hope that this gives young people a chance in order to show that, number one, opera is a viable option in terms of a career. And trust me, it is. You go to Europe, you're all over the place. You can make very good money as an opera singer, as Leontine Price, as Denise Graves. And also the chance to show African Americans there's just more than just the hip hop and the R&B and the opera is one of those options. I'm very excited about this, and like I said, I may even try to go down to Little Rock and take a look at what they're doing with that.
Yeah, and James, you know that saying about give the people what they want, and if you're a dad, you want to give your children what they want, right? So,
Right.
and along the lines of music, in 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks from today, on this very program, we're gonna have Skip Marley on this program. It's Black Music Appreciation Month too. We're gonna have Skip Marley on this program, and we also expected to have Ziggy Marley again on the program. So stay tuned to let it be known. We got some surprises coming up. But the 2022-2023 Opera in the Rock set season begins in September with a mass gala that's going to feature, well, the aforementioned Denise Graves as headliner. In November, they'll present Porgy and Bess, performed by the Arkansas Symphony Orchestra. And during Black History Month 2023, a Divas in the Rock fundraiser will pay tribute to Whitney Houston. So they are doing a lot, James. They are doing a lot.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you mentioned that the symphony orchestra is getting involved with this. That's a major development, and that's an institution we've kind of ignored too. Many musicians don't, for some reason, even here in DC, they don't like the symphony orchestra. They think it's kind of stuffy. They think it's kind of the music is kind of old fashioned, but actually symphonies, if you play it right, and I do mean play it right, you can have a quite lucrative career as a musician in terms of being with the symphony orchestra. That's why I was very happy to see the symphony was working with the opera on this. And it looks like the whole that Little Rock is about to embrace this. This is fantastic, and this is definitely should be replicated across the country, even here in Washington area. And it would just open up so many doors for many young people who have the talent in order to participate in this genre. They just don't know very much about it.
You know what I like about the opera, James? The fact that you get your black tie on and the tux and all that stuff, and just gotta tuck the stomach in a little bit, and then I'll feel like opera ready.
Yes.
I really like that. Everybody's dressed to the nines, as they say, and you go there, everybody's clean, and they're quiet. It's like at a golf match, right? They're quiet. They applaud when it's time to applaud, and just when you think they're not really enjoying it, they burst into a standing ovation. I mean, it's just like it's a great thing there. And the following month, after paying tribute to Whitney Houston, they will also do a recital by soprano Takesha Mishi Kazart Thomas, who will honor Black opera and jazz stars, including Jesse Norman and Ella Fitzgerald. And then next June, the Arkansas Company will stage its full opera, Highway 1, by native son William Grant Still. So, James, again, this is a fantastic thing. We wanted to highlight it this morning because generally you don't associate African Americans with opera, but once again, changing the game. And it's just not opera. Obviously, it's no matter what we look at sports, we look at business, Black businesses, when given the opportunity to thrive. And that's the thing that this, when you think about this country and you think about how you have certain powers that be that just don't want to see this. They know that more and more people of color are becoming the majority. It's going to happen whether they like it or not, right?
Right.
But instead of embracing it and enjoying the talents, I mean, you think about it, James, we always are changing the game when it comes to any genre, right? And we're talking about music right now, and you and I pre-show we were talking about different artists. We mentioned Chic. We talked about Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, and you think about people talk about rap music, as we were talking about beforehand. rap music. Well, think about what White Lines, that song by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, was talking about. It was talking about staying away from drugs, right? And,
Right.
they did so in such a hip way, such a way in which, you know, you could see the character that Dave Chappelle played in one of Spike Lee movies. What was his character, James? He was on drugs. White powder around his mouth.
Yeah,
you can see somebody like that, right? A real life person like that, hearing that song and, you know, like, okay, put the pipe down. Don't do it. Right? You know, the message was, their message was so powerful. And you had, at that point in time, if you remember, oh, rap will never, you know, it's going to go away. It'll never be anything. It's just a fad. Hip hop is just a fad. And now you can't listen to music. Any R&B or pop or even rock star has to have some element of hip hop in their music in order for it to go to the top.
That's right. And one quick thing about what you were saying about Little Rock. I'm glad Little Rock is doing this throughout the year, Stacey. And it's not just a 2 or 3 month thing, and then they're going to completely forget about it. So that's just fantastic in terms of that. I think about, you were educating me offline about that song, Le Freak. And you just blew my mind when you educated me about what that was really about. And then I just brought up to you about Brandy, that song Brandy, I Really Miss You, and what that was really about. I learned, but then, you know, Rick James, my man, when he started talking about Mary Jane, I knew what he was talking about.
You know, that song, actually, Mary Jane, when you think about everybody is on now, we talk about the marijuana being legal and cannabis. That song is probably, it could be a #1 song right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh boy. And as far as, go ahead.
Yeah, but what you were saying, it made a lot of sense. Back at that time, these songs had meaning, they had purpose. We could understand what they were saying. We understood what they mean. With all due respect to today, I don't necessarily see that.
Well, just a real quick, what James was referring to with the song "The Freak," for those who don't know, is basically was one of those songs where Nile Rodgers was dissed at Studio 54, and so they created this song called "The Freak." And if you listen to the lyrics, it's talking about what goes on inside of Studio 54. And you remember, Studio 54 was one of those places where all these big time celebrities, you name them, they went. It was a place of pure debauchery, and what went on there, as they say about Vegas, what goes on in Vegas, it stays in Vegas, and that's how Studio 54 was. And Nile Rodgers and Chic exposed that in the song "Le Freak." James, we went all the way off opera, and you know that was not cool. We should have stayed with opera, black opera, black people, black power. So don't forget to go to NNPA-events.com. I always do that dash because if I say slash, that means it's that way. And I don't want y'all to go that way. I want you to go this way. NNPA-events.com to register and join us in New Orleans for the 195th anniversary celebration conference of the Black Press of America. Yes, it is 195 years. Think about that. Be there, join us. So many panels and discussions on topics that directly impacts Black America will be discussed at the conference, which is titled, goodness gracious, it's right there, Amplifying Our Voices for Freedom, Justice, Equality, and Equity. And don't forget to tune in this coming Monday. We have a very, very special guest. You hear about climate change. You hear about environmental justice or injustice. You hear about, and you see in our communities particularly, how bad the environment can be. Well, we have a very, very special appearance by Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Michael Regan, who is the first African-American to serve in that role. It's going to be a very special conversation. He has some really interesting things, experiences that he's going to share, including when he visited a school down south and it was deplorable. A school, you got to hear what he has to say about that. Join us Monday folks, we really appreciate all of you. Yeah, 350 shows. David Youngblood says, congratulations. David has been with us from the start. We appreciate it. David Childs as well. Bobby Henry. Bobby, we got to get you back on the show, Bobby. We miss Bobby Henry, the distinguished publisher who actually we're going to celebrate as well in New Orleans. We're going to celebrate Bobby in New Orleans as well. The West Side Gazette's distinguished publisher there, Michelle Madison, has always been with us, as well as Hugh Ivey and Joni King. Dr. Nicole McDaniel, I love saying that. My wonderful, wonderful sister, who is absolutely amazing in everything she does. She just got her PhD. Her daughter graduates. My niece this evening. Her other daughter graduated last week with a bachelor's of arts. So they're rolling along. I'm so proud of them. And James, we're proud of you because you've been rolling. You've been our right hand man for the longest now. We appreciate you and the Washington Informer for allowing you this time with us at least 3 times a week. We can't. Yeah. He's wearing purple too. He's wearing purple. Why are you wearing purple, James? Why are you wearing purple?
I'm wearing purple because of Prince.
There you go. No better words have been spoken. He's never meant to cause you any sorrow. He's never meant to cause you any pain. He's James Wright, and we are the Black Press of America. This is Let It Be Known. We will see you on Monday.